How hard is it to break through a chaotic news cycle with some of these closing arguments and messages? I mean, we've been ping-ponging from Kavanaugh to what Fox News is billing as the caravan crisis, now this concern over attacks against Democrats. Who benefits from such a chaotic news cycle?
Well, you know, my sense is that the president is very good at distracting people, especially when you're talking about the cable news cycle. But when you're talking about local news coverage in a lot of these races, a lot of the attention, again, goes back to the issues that are important to people in those states and locally. So you don't get nearly as much coverage of some of these more polarizing issues on an ongoing basis when it comes to state and local news. And again, our candidates, when they're out on the campaign trail, they're talking directly to voters, and they're talking about these issues voters care about. I can tell you, voters were rightfully very alarmed the other day when Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, said, you know, now that we did this tax cut and we got $2 trillion added to our national debt, we're going to have to do something about it. We're going to have to come after cuts to Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid, which is exactly what many of us have been predicting. And the Medicare cuts are part of the Republican budget that a lot of these Republican senators voted for. Those are the issues. Those are important issues to families. Is, you know, are they going to see their Medicare support cut? So what we're finding is that, yes, there's always the latest tweet out of the White House, but most voters, not cable news, but most voters, they're focused on what they care about, what they wake up thinking about every morning.
And yet, President Trump's approval rating has gone up, and he is talking about things on the campaign trail that are actually not true. For example, saying that Republicans are going to achieve another middle-class tax cut, a 10% middle-class tax cut, claims about the caravan of migrants, that Democrats have somehow instigated this. Where do you go with that? I mean, how do you punch back that messaging?
Well, let's just take the tax issue for an example, because I think some people pointed out to the president that, in fact, the Senate and the House are not in session, so you can't pass a 10% middle-class tax cut at this moment in time. But actually, the issue's actually, I think, more significant than that, because the fact that the president felt he had to say he's going to come back and do a middle-class tax cut just tells us what we're hearing from people around the country, which is that first tax cut did not help folks in the middle. It was a huge giveaway to big corporations and to very wealthy people, and it ran up the debt, $1 trillion, and they are now saying that they're going to come back and make these cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Democrats have always supported a middle-class tax cut. We would have welcomed the opportunity to target tax cuts toward the middle class. And the fact that the president now says that's what he wants to do tells me that they're admitting that round one just didn't do the trick. And in fact, what we're seeing is over $750 billion in stock buybacks from big corporations. 35% of shareholders of U.S. stock are actually foreign shareholders, and so that money's going into foreign accounts. And the promised $4,000 a year wage increases, people around the country going, I don't see that. And so, again, what we're seeing is that what the Republicans had hoped to run on was going to be the last tax cut. Now you got the president saying, well, that didn't really work out the way we wanted. Maybe we'll try something else.
But do you think that message is getting through to voters? Because it's always hard to counter the loud megaphone any president has, and the national presence, the national stage, especially if we're not always working with facts.
You know, again, it is when you're part of a national conversation, and you're right, you're not always working with facts when it comes to this president's Twitter account and this president's statements, but that is what the state-by-state campaigns are all about. We don't see it as much in this area, but if you go to one of our major battleground states and you turn on your television or your radio, the debate you will hear primarily is on these issues. As I said, healthcare is dominating the debates in these Senate races. And again, because you have Republicans, as you say, they're now trying to run away from votes they may have cast. I mean, Dean Heller from Nevada, he said publicly he was going to protect Nevada. He was not going to support a bill that undid protections for pre-existing conditions. He went to the White House, the president twisted his arm, and he reversed himself. That's an important issue to people in Nevada. And so we're seeing that in Nevada. In Arizona, Martha McSally's the Republican candidate. As a member of Congress, she voted for the Republican budget. It calls for about $500 billion in cuts to Medicare. That's what they're talking about in Arizona. So I think that these are issues that, at least in each of the states, people are focused on. I couldn't agree with you more in the sort of, again, the sort of cable news environment. It has been very difficult to break through, but that's what campaigns are about, trying to break through state by state.